This video is about the biggest mistakes that I see people make when trying to act confident. I'm a stand-up comedian, and I've noticed certain patterns of the same exact mistakes appearing over and over and over again. I see a lot of people being like, act confident and then you'll feel confident, and I don't think it works that way. I think the reason people give that advice is because it's a shortcut to the middle, but it's something that will keep you from reaching the top. And as someone who used to struggle with it myself, I kind of want to share what I know now. So in this video, I'm going to break down the 5 biggest myths and pieces of misinformation that I constantly see spread across the internet, and potentially some useful strategies. So without wasting any of your time, I'm going to dive right into the first and worst piece of advice I see all over the place, which is fake it till you make it. I always remind myself on stage that people are psychic. Not literally, but what I mean is that they can see through you more than you realize. When you try and fake your confidence, it just doesn't work. I have had so many jokes that worked until I stopped believing them. As soon as I stopped believing in my joke, the audience does too, and they start falling flat. I like to compare confidence to like a Jenga tower, where if you rush, you can make it to the middle really quickly, but if your foundations are terrible, then there's nothing you can do to go any higher. So the question is, how do you build real confidence? I think you need an anchor point for your confidence. It's essentially like a sense of self. Like, what are you good at? What are you passionate about? You don't need to be great at it. And I think you can find that thing by letting go. Embrace what you're bad at, and you will find what you are good at. Look at all the things you base your confidence on and get rid of as many of them as possible. Don't try to be everything to everyone. No matter who you are, 10% of the people on this planet will always hate you. I think that's a really good thing to remind yourself of. The highest approval rating that anyone has ever achieved is 90%. Now, that's a pretty abstract piece of advice, so I want to now offer you a much more tangible piece of advice, which is, how do you handle yourself when you do something embarrassing? This is much more simple and concrete, and in fact, I have come up with a tier list of how to handle yourself when you do something embarrassing. Starting at the bottom with F tier, we have give up. I don't think I need to explain this. I think if you're watching this video, you're probably not giving up. Let's move on to D tier. This is fighting back against an embarrassing moment, otherwise known as Ice Bath Valley. This is where the self-help gurus hang out. I think it's super popular for them to give advice like tough it through, take an ice bath, deny your feelings, because that's an easy shortcut. On stage, what you'll see a lot of comics do is they'll have a joke bomb and then they'll go, you guys don't know, that's actually a really good joke. And you can tell that they're actually kind of hurt in that moment. They wanted that joke to go well, and their anger and like fake confidence doesn't work. It alienates the audience a lot, and it's way more transparent than they realize. If you're guilty of this tier, it's pretty easy to move up to the next one. It's not that much better, but right above fighting back against an embarrassing moment is barreling through. This is acceptable. If you do something embarrassing, just don't get angry and move on to the next joke. The big issue with this is that you look out of touch with what's happening. Like, if you imagine it in terms of a real life situation, if you say something that's supposed to be funny and no one finds it funny, you can't really just pretend that didn't happen. It's better than getting angry, but it's not great. So, moving up to B tier, we have where I think most people should practice, which is accepting it. I think almost everyone should hang out here. I don't think you can skip straight to A tier for the most part. Accepting it is acknowledging an embarrassing moment and being a little self-deprecating. Let's say you trip, you go, I got clumsy feet. People like the relief of that moment because they want to know that everything's okay even though you did something embarrassing. I know many comics who actually intentionally screw up on their way to the stage in order to show the audience that they are confident and can handle it. It's a pretty clever technique for faking a higher level of confidence. But with that being said, once you practice B tier a bunch, I think there is an even higher level of confidence, which is A tier, which is where you truly enjoy screwing up. This is not something I think you can just dive into. I think you really need to own B tier first. Personally, I think I hover on the edge of A tier. I don't know that I'm personally fully in A tier yet, but I'll say that I have a sort of canned line that I use. Whenever a joke falls flat, I look at the audience and I go, oh, you know what? Thank you for that feedback. That was really good. And it's funny because it's sort of an acknowledgement of the fact that I did want the joke to go well, but honestly what I was looking for was to find out if the joke was good or not, and I got that from the audience. If you can achieve A-tier confidence, that's when you truly don't care if something goes poorly or well, because you know that you're good at other stuff or that you have other good jokes. And so one joke going poorly or anything embarrassing you is just unimportant to your broader sense of self. Now, since we're talking about practicing confidence and lines that you can use, I really want to make an important distinction about what confidence is. Because I think a mistake I see a lot of people make is they think that confidence is the same thing as charisma. Confidence and charisma are related. Oftentimes one will lead to the other, but charisma, as I would define it, is more your charm, your ability to talk people up and kind of be smooth. Whereas a confident person can be very quiet. In fact, I would say I'm not charismatic really at all, but I like to imagine that I'm the more quiet style of confidence. I just don't feel compelled to socialize with people a lot of the time. I'm introverted, which means I'm not afraid of talking to people. I'm just not interested in it most of the time, if I'm being honest. I think the best way I can illustrate this is by saying, imagine there's someone at a party and they're at the center of the dance floor and they're going, woohoo, look at me, I'm having a great time. Is that person more confident than someone at the corner of the room playing foosball who just doesn't even notice what's happening? I'm the guy playing foosball. And the reason I want to make this distinction is because for a while I tried to mimic charisma, and then I realized that there is confidence in not trying to be charismatic. You should find your own genre of confidence and not try to mimic what you see or think other people's confidence is. The best way you can feel confident on stage, I've found, is by convincing yourself that the audience loves you. That's definitely one of those statements that's easier said than done, but I'll say even now, I will sometimes peek out from behind the curtain before I'm going on stage, and I'll look at every single person in the front row and tell myself a story about why I love them. Maybe that sounds a little silly, but it really works. If I love them, they love me, and everything's great. I would say this is about opening yourself up, making yourself vulnerable, but also understanding that the audience is rooting for you. People in life are rooting for you. No one actually wants to experience an embarrassing moment. It's not fun. And you really need to remind yourself of that. And another big lie that I used to always tell myself that I now completely think is toxic is the idea of overthinking. I used to say to myself that the reason I was nervous is because I was overthinking. This is super wrong. The thought that goes through your head when you are nervous about a performance is, oh no, they're not gonna like my jokes. That's not overthinking. That is selectively catastrophizing. Let's think further through that thought. If they don't like your jokes, what happens? Nothing at all. It doesn't matter. I kind of understand fear of bombing if it's like a big audition or something like that, but the truth is you can bomb loads of time and it has no effect. You are not overthinking. You are thinking to a very specific point and then stopping so that you have the worst possible outlook on the situation. When you are nervous about any social situation, keep thinking about it. Think about the total possible outcomes, because I actually bet that they're not as bad as you think. Now, all that stuff is useful to say, but the really important thing and the most important tip I can give you is one that you probably won't enjoy, which is that you need to take these concepts and internalize them. And in order to do that, you need to practice. I really think that the idea of failure scares people more than failure itself. There's a philosopher I really like by the name of Slavoj Žižek, and he's got a movie that's worth checking out where he talks about how the idea of drinking a Coca-Cola is often more exciting than when you actually get to drink the Coca-Cola. That's how fear and anxiety work. What's really freaking you out is your mind racing beforehand. The actual experience is not as bad. All the advice I have in this video and the insights I have into confidence are meaningless if they're just inside your head, because you can logically believe things but not actually feel them. It takes time to take concepts like these and bring them from your brain into your heart or soul, or I don't know where anxiety is stored. but it takes time to get there. You need to go into social situations and take risks. You need to go on stage and intentionally bomb at open mics. You will numb yourself to the pain of doing poorly, and you will also teach yourself that people still like you even when you do bad stuff. And so I'd like to close this video out by giving you a little bit of advice I doubt you will hear anywhere else on YouTube, which is that if you want real, authentic confidence, you should not subscribe to this channel. You should not check out my other videos. What you should do is you should close this page, shut down your computer, and just go outside.